Good morning, good evening, good night to everybody who's joined the webinar. This is the second of a series of 2 webinars, Road to Belém, Farmers and Business, Scaling Biosolutions for Soil Health. My name is James Stapleton, and I'm the Senior Advisor at the Alliance of Biodiversity International and SEAT, and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar. First, I'd like to start off with some warm greetings to partners from the private sectors, farmer organizations, researchers, scientists, and everyone who's participating today. Today's focus is on farmers and businesses scaling biosolutions for soil health and climate action. And I'd like to say that this webinar has been sponsored by the CGIAR Climate Action and the Multifunctional Landscape Science Programs in partnership with Embrapa and Brazil's Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock. And looking ahead, before I concentrate on today's event, I'd just like to say we will have a third of the 3 series, which will take place in Belém live, and it will be live streamed in the Blue Zone in the CGIAR Food and Agriculture Pavilion. And my colleagues will put the link in there if you want to register or if you want to know more about this particular chat. Today, we have an interesting lineup of speakers. We have opening remarks from Alessandro Fidelis, who is the outgoing Director of Innovation at the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock in Brazil. Dr. Marcela Quintero, who's the Deputy Director General for Research at the Alliance of Biodiversity International and SEAT. And we have scene-setting remarks from Elisabetta Nimadalla, the President of the East African Farmers Federation. And I will introduce our panelists a little bit later on, but we have panelist experts from Brazil, from Kenya, from Cote d'Ivoire, and from India. So we're looking forward to an interesting session. The purpose of this series is to demonstrate that adaptation and mitigation benefits farmers and agribusinesses. We want to show you with the evidence and the pathways for scaling for science, finance, and business models. Sorry. And to connect farmers, cooperatives, agribusinesses, investors, and researchers. And if there was a call to action that was coming from this webinar series, we want to inspire greater ambition at COP30. We want to support the advocacy for stronger policies, targeted finance, and inclusive partnerships. And we want to drive food systems transformation that restores soil and delivers climate action from the ground up. So before I start to introduce the speakers, I just want to have some housekeeping remarks. We have simultaneous translation from English to Portuguese and Portuguese to English. To look at the bottom right-hand side, and you'll see the globe where you can click on English or Portuguese. If you want to raise questions, please do use the questions and answer function anytime throughout the whole webinar, and we'll pick up your questions as soon as we can. This session is being recorded, and we will have the YouTube versions will be posted later. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alessandro Fidelis, the outgoing Director for Innovation at the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, for some opening remarks. Alessandro.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here with you today. So, first of all, I'd like to thank James from CGIAR, his team, for this partnership. Thank you, James, in organizing this important webinar series. It's truly a pleasure to be here with you all. So, as Brazil prepares to host the COP30 in Belém, CGIAR Climate Action, in partnership with the Brazilian Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, Embrapa, and CGIAR Multifunctional Landscape, is bringing together a series of high-level dialogues placing biological solutions at the heart of climate action and agriculture. So, I would like to mention about the resilient agriculture investments for net zero land degradation, that it's RAIZ initiative. It's a Brazilian initiative that will be launching together with FAO at COP30. And this initiative was created to promote viable solutions for the recovery of degraded agricultural lands. So it's a problem for many countries, many regions. So this is the reason that we are launching this initiative. RAIZ also functions as a financial accelerator, aiming to identify and connect investments, mechanisms, as well as to foster cooperation and knowledge sharing among countries. Pretty much close to what we're going to do today. So in this context, bioinputs are crucial to achieve the highest goals. And our webinar is strongly connected, bringing examples of scale-up strategies. But before we dive into today's discussions, as a former Director of Innovation in Ministry of Agriculture, I'd like to share a few key figures and initiatives that illustrate what we are building in Brazil. We established a strong framework to promote biological solutions through the National Bioinputs Program that has 4 years that it's running. And it's supported by a favorable regulatory environment and initiatives such as the bioeconomy network, which is connecting hundreds of stakeholders around this theme. We also we're the first country that has a specific law for bioinputs that I strongly recommend all the countries to look for these opportunities to have a specific law to support, to foster, to help to the registration of bioinputs, because it's very crucial for sustainable agriculture. Another example that I would like to bring from here is that a product named Bioma Force. Currently, this product is covering 6 million hectares. We just launched this product from 4 years ago, and this product is already covering 6 million hectares in Brazil, generating twice the revenue of 70 traditional breeding programs. So only one product has all this potential. It's a solubilization of phosphorus. It's a very interesting technology. So it's just an example to show how bioinputs has a huge potential. Bioinputs also has an annual growth of 40% in Brazil. Its market share has increased from 2 to 5% in the last 4 years. So it's very fast growing rate. And we are expected to achieve 20% of market share very soon. And another important information is that the farmers are already reducing the chemical inputs by up to 50%, demonstrating the tangible impact of this technology in sustainable agriculture, and also reducing the food cost and bringing more sustainable production. That it's very important, these two opportunities. We also conduct a study and a report for inoculation for grasses, and we launched the Nitro Plus program. This technology represents a cost reduction of $5 billion if we can change and reduce the use of nitrogen in grasses like wheat and corn, for example. So it also has the potential to mitigate to 18 megatons of CO2 annually. So bioinputs is very connected to all the climate change. So it's very important, a strategy. The potential for further growth and investments is enormous. Today, we will showcase a sample of this potential, highlighting the path that farmers, scientists are creating bioinputs to share their experience on scale up and potential impacts. So our goal is to scale up the solution, shift paradigms, and how to create a breakthrough in agriculture for this time. So guys, for this webinar series is one key channel to advance in this vision. And I wish you all a very productive discussion. So thank you very much. Thank you, James.
Thank you very much, Alexandro. And just like to add there that we're also honored to be able to work with Brazil on the RAIS initiative with the Alliance of Biodiversity International and SEED scientists looking at seeing how we can use the sustainable finance hub of CGI or to be able to bring finance solutions. And that leads me to Dr. Marcela Quintero, the Deputy Director General for Research at the Alliance of Biodiversity International and SEED, for some opening remarks. Marcela.
Thank you very much, James, for moderating this session, and thank you everyone who is connected today. I know you are connected from different sides of the world. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And I want also to welcome everyone who is connected, representing private sector, farmer organizations, government, and also from across the CIR and the research community. So for me, it's really a pleasure to be today in this second dialogue in our road to COP30. And today, as we already know, we are focusing the discussion around how farmers and businesses are scaling biological solutions for soil health and climate action. So as we look ahead to COP30 in Belém, we know that this is a moment for great optimism and a great of also urgency. So across Latin America, Asia, and Africa, we are seeing real progress. And we just heard an example of this from Alessandro, where we have already cases where farmers, agribusinesses are already adopting biological solutions that restore degraded soils, reduce dependency on synthetic inputs, but also help to strengthen resilience to climate shocks. So there are powerful success stories that we are going to be listening today. And this show also the power when we bring together science, policy, and businesses working hand in hand to transform the agricultural systems. We are going to see, and we have seen already, farmers increasing productivity while cutting costs. This is possible. We have seen also companies, and today we are going to listen examples of this, that are investing in sustainable bioinputs and services that make business sense. And also we have seen researchers providing evidence of what is working, what is not working in biosolutions, and how with additional scientific evidence, we can increase the adoption of biosolutions. But also, I think we need to recognize that there are still barriers that we need to face together. There are barriers related with regulations, right, in countries. And I'm very glad to hear that Brazil is actually the pioneer on how the regulatory framework is supporting this transformation. But still, we have smallholder farmers in many parts of the world that lack access of reliable bioinputs. They also lack of training and also the finance to make these solutions scalable. Also, if you see from the business perspective, there is also uncertainty, right? Because of an unclear regulations in many countries, because also limited market incentives, and also fragmented data and fragmented scientific data that shows what can work and where. So, and also from the scientific perspective, sometimes we need probably to make an extra effort to make sure that our science make the difference, the biggest difference, especially by reaching those that need this evidence the most. So that's why at the beginning, James was saying, I think this is a call to action and a call to collective action to see how we can scale biological solutions, thinking that this is not only a technology problem, it's also an institutional problem where we need to align the incentives, the regulations, and the scientific evidence to support business models, policy frameworks, and also the farmers who really want, is not that they have to, they also want to make this transformation to reduce the dependency, for example, on synthetic inputs and increase the sustainability and resilience of their systems. So we, as the Alliance of Biodiversity International and CIAT, as part of the CIR, are very committed also with this research agenda. And we are fully convinced that only with our partners, Embrapa, MAPA, the CIR programs on climate action and multifunctional landscapes, we can work hand in hand to put together science with practice and with policy processes to support soil health, to support the scalability of biosolutions in a way that can also help the countries to achieve their targets in terms of climate smart agriculture, in terms of also reducing their emissions. Brazil, as we also heard from Alessandro, I think is a very good experience. And it's an inspiring example, showing that innovation is possible when we bring together science, policy, and markets. So I think the next step and the challenge that we have is to take this type of successes to the global level. Also facilitating knowledge exchange with other countries that are also interested in this type of transitions. So with this, I think today we are here for two main things. One, to recognize these successes, and we are going to be listening about this today. And the second one is also talking about the barriers that are holding us back, especially in terms of scalability and replication, of course, contextualizing the technologies and the institutional innovations to the different countries. So we are here to learn from each other, but more importantly, to commit to collective action. And today I can speak for the CIAR and for the Alliance of Biodiversity and SIA to reaffirm our commitment to advance science in a way that can help to remove these barriers in the countries where they want to embrace this type of transition towards biological solutions for soil health and climate resilience. So thank you, and I'm eager to hear about the different experiences in different countries and to learn also from the great successes in Brazil. Thank you, James.
Thanks a lot, Marcela. Thanks a lot for putting the emphasis on, the collective challenge. And we have some of the answers and we need to scale them up, but we also have to not give up and sort of working on the answers that we need. You spoke about business, and now that leads me to introduce Elizabeth Nimadala, who's the president of the East African Farmers Federation, one of the central businesses, if you like, in the business model for scaling up bio inputs. Elizabeth, I'd like to call you for some scene-setting remarks. Where is it for farmers in Eastern Africa? What is the scene, and then what do you need, and what is the progress? Thanks a lot, Elizabeth.
Yeah, thank you very much, James. Maybe I should start with a lecture to train you how to pronounce my name. So I'm called Elizabeth Nsimadala. I'm a Ugandan smallholder farmer and the president of the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation. So distinguished colleagues, partners and friends, let me start by sending you virtual greetings. Good morning, afternoon, and good evening from wherever you're connected from. I would also like to really start by acknowledging with deep gratitude the of this event for inviting me to give framing remarks, on behalf of the farmers constituency, which of course really, is at the center when it comes to discussions around the bio products. As we all know, globally and Africa in particular, we stand at the dawn of a new economy, one that transforms agricultural residues when you look at the waste and also the local biomass into value, but most importantly, into jobs and also giving hope to the continent. So at the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, we see this every day. And this is growing experiences and lessons from the 10 countries where we have a footprint with over 24 national level member organizations, where we represent over 25 million smallholder farmers that have moved in various fisheries. So listening from speakers that gave the opening remarks, the question is no longer if bio thrive in Africa, but I think for me it's how fast we can scale. A few years ago, about 2 years ago, we undertook a study on the impact of the EU Green Deal at smallholder farmers of East Africa. And the reason we did this was to see how we can create awareness about the deal to our members and to inform partners in Europe, including the European Union, about some of the negative implications of the deal, especially on matters of compliance. We were very clear that in its current form, issues of market access to the EU would be curtailed. The preparedness of the region was really wanting. The regulators, no growers were aware of the new compliance requirements, for example. And it was going to be expensive in terms of monitoring for deforestation regulations, immense transitioning to organic inputs, with the market not having the volumes and the diversity of these products, was really going to be a challenge. So we engaged the Organization of Africa Pacific States, CORID, and other partners in Europe. Also shared the report with the African Union Commission and many African governments where we have a presence. So that said, we also, as a federation, embarked on the process to build our internal capacity as we prepared the region for any eventuality. And we are glad that the implementation dates have been changed to sometime, I think, next year. So probably maybe our advocacy and Robbie also played a great or made a great input into the process. We also engaged the EU delegations in our countries of operation, and we are happy to note that actually the respective offices had engaged in stakeholder consultation about the same. Secondly, I really want to point out one or two of some of the projects that we've been involved in. We worked with several universities in Europe and Africa through a project, christened BioAfrica Initiative, which is supported by the European Union's Horizon 2020 program, working with 25 partners, 13 from Africa and 12 from Europe. And in Africa, we worked in Uganda, in Ghana, in Senegal, in Cote d'Ivoire, and with numerous smallholder farmers, including women, youth, and pastoralist groups. So we were able to test at small scale the locally adapted bio-based technologies, the green biorefineries, pelletizers, and bioplastic innovation. And these systems, as we all know, convert crop residues and agro-waste into animal feed, into organic fertilizers, into construction materials and clean energy, and cutting costs while restoring our soils and livelihoods. So we were able to develop biochar, which is being used by the farmers in all these countries where the project was being implemented. So we are currently implementing another Horizon Europe project called FertiTech. And this program is coordinated by the RISE Research Institute of Sweden. And FertiTech really focuses on fertilizer recovery from secondary raw materials. It focuses on turning waste into high quality, climate-friendly fertilizers that can replace up to 30% of the chemical inputs. We've been profiling African fertilizer manufacturers, reducing alternative fertilizers that are inorganic. We profile their products, and we are compiling a compendium that will also have similar contacts from Europe, with a view of presenting this data for review under the Green Deal transition arrangement. So work is still at the nascent stage. There's need to scale both in terms of production and use, so that the transitioning can have less hurdles. We also need to merge similar work that may be underway in the net, so as to synergize to create a pool of information that can be utilized to inform decision making. So from our experience, BioAfrica and FertiTech, they represent two ends of one powerful continuum, from practical innovation on the ground to global policy leadership on nutrient circularity. And the Federation now stands at the intersection of research, business, and policy, amplifying African farmers' voices in the global transition towards sustainable production. Colleagues and friends, my message today is simple, but it's urgent. Africa is ready to co-shape the bioeconomy. We have demonstrated viability, inclusivity, and partnership capacity. We invite governments, investors, and technology partners to join us in expanding these models so that circular bioproducts, biofertilizers, and green value chains become the backbone of Africa's food and climate security. At EF, we believe that every farmer, no matter how small, can be a producer of both food and bio-based wealth. We strongly believe that we can turn Africa's biological abundance into a global force for sustainability by linking science with practice and innovation with inclusion. Thank you very much for your kind attention, and I really look forward to a fruitful webinar. Thank you, and back to you, James.
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth, and thanks a lot for reminding us about how much is already going on in the African continent about this, that farmers need not only to be at the center, but are also willing and eager to be at the center, to be able to connect science and policy and business together. And then lastly, for reminding us that it's not just a question of technology solutions, as Marcella said, it's also a question of connecting to policies and market access. Without market access, a lot of this is very difficult. So let's start the panel discussion. Our first panelist up is Guilherme Chayer, the senior researcher at Embrapa. And we're going to start at the beginning, Guilherme. I'm going to say, why is soil organic matter central to soil health and climate action? To unpack it from your experience, why is it at the center?
Okay, thank you, James, for the question. Good morning for all from Brazil. Soil organic matter really is at the heart of soil health. And it also plays a key role when we talk about climate change, because it's a major play in the global carbon cycle. Soils actually store an enormous amount of carbon. Just to have a sense of scale, soils hold about 2 to 3 times more carbon than the whole CO2, the carbon in the CO2 in the atmosphere, or 4 to 5 times more carbon than all living biomass on the planet. So even small changes in the carbon stored in the soil can make a big difference in the amount of CO2 in the air, either accelerating or helping to slow down climate change. And this will happen because soils can be either a sink of carbon or a source of CO2. So when soils are well managed with practices like no-till, crop rotation, or cover crops, they will act as a carbon sink, pulling CO2 from the atmosphere and store it as soil organic matter. But when soils are poorly managed with too much tillage or little vegetation cover, they do the opposite. So they become a carbon source, releasing CO2 and making the soil lose fertility. So how this is connected to soil health? Because increasing soil organic carbon will improve physical properties like structure, soil porosity, water retention. It will also improve chemical properties, such as the capacity of the soil to hold nutrients, and also support the biological activity, providing food and energy for the microbial community that drives nutrient cycling and helps to keep plants healthy. So all this process together, they will generate real ecosystem services, such as erosion control, better water regulation, greater resilience to droughts and floods, and of course, higher and more stable crop yields and less need of fertilizers. So in synthesis, when we rebuild soil organic matter, we're not just storing carbon, we are actually reviving the biological process that sustains productivity, resilience, and long-term health soils.
Thanks for that, Guilherme. And so that leads me, I think, to the second question, because your work is leading you to develop tools to predict the soil carbon changes and then to know how much of the bio inputs to use. Can you maybe talk to us a little bit about some of those tools and and how they're moving along.
Yeah, sure. So one example that I would like to share is a Brazilian innovation developed by Embrapa. It's called Soil Bio. It's short for soil bioanalysis technology. The idea behind this technology is to bring the biological component into routine soil testing, which traditionally focused only on chemical properties. So soil bio measures the activity of two soil enzymes, the beta-glucosidase and the aryl sulfatase, which are directly involved in carbon sulfur cycles. So how it works. These enzymes, they act like biological sensors. When their activity is high, it means that the soil is alive, rich in organic matter, and biologically active. But when enzyme activity drops, that's an early warning sign that the soil is starting to lose organic matter and the degradation is underway. And the main point here is that we can detect that degradation long before any change can be seen or detected in total soil carbon. And we can do the opposite thing also. So when the soil is already degraded and already poor in soil organic matter, if the enzyme starts to rise, it's one of the first signs that the soil is recovering. Meaning that the life in the soil is waking up, biological processes are restarting, and the system is beginning to rebuild its carbon reserves. So this biological reaction usually comes before we can measure an increase in soil carbon. So it's like a early indicator of soil carbon in the soil. So based on this approach, we create what we call the soil carbon trend index that combines enzyme activity with soil organic levels to predict both the direction and intensity of the carbon in the soil, showing whether soil is likely to gain, to remain stable, or lose carbon over time. So in practice, this index works like a carbon trend thermometer in the soil, helping farmers and decision makers to anticipate changes in soil conditions before degradation becomes visible or too costly to fix. So just to finalize, and beyond the lab, the measurement of these enzymes, this technology has already been applied in large scale in Brazil. Thousands of soil samples have been analyzed through the commercial labs using soil bio protocol, building a national database that can be used as a strategic tool to soil health monitoring. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Guilherme. That's it's an early warning signal for soil health and to be able to know when, where, and how to introduce. Well, that brings me to Gustavo Carvalho, who's a commercial supervisor in Copavel BioCop, which is an association that works together with farmers, bringing farmers together and bringing products to the market. What are the cooperative models that you have found, Gustavo, that work best for the adoption of biosolutions?
All right. Thank you, James. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of BioCop and the Brazilians Cooperative discussing such an important topic, not for only agriculture, but for the world. Before I answer the question, if you allow me, I brought important numbers to context. In 2024, Brazilian planting area was 108 million acres soybean and corns. And with the new Brazilian biosolutions, we have a reduction on 236 million tons of CO2 released into the wild. If you change this for money, we can head saving to $27.4 billion economy chemicals fertilizer. Thinking this, the BioCop was created last year to help the farmer, agriculture, and the world. But now, answer the question, James. We think that the most effective cooperatives are the one that takes an active role. A great example is a Biocoop, Brazilian first cooperative owned a biofactory, which produce high quality, high-tech bioinputs for its members. These cooperatives also offer specialized technical support and access to sustainable technologies, helping reduce costs and give farms more confidence. And by using digital platforms to monitor sustainable practice, and they also unlocked access to premium market. This is a model that strengthens regenerative and low carbon agriculture. Uh, if I can tell you a keyword, I said this is not a fury. It's happening now and it's working.
Thanks a lot, Gustavo. And how can biosolutions become attractive economically to farmers? You said you gave some numbers there, but maybe you can give some sort of examples of how these biosolutions can become economically attractive to farmers. Because you highlighted that gap between the theory and the practice.
All right. To make a bio solution truly attractive for the farmer, need to see real results in the field. When the solutions lower input costs, improve productivity, and open doors to higher value markets, adoption becomes a natural, it's the next step. And if farmers are also rewarded for environment service like soil, water conservation, or carbon capture, that just adds to the bottom line. Our job is to show in practical terms that these solutions not only make economy sense, but also help protection the soil, the water, the climate, and the nature itself. We can tell that the future of agriculture isn't just sustainable, it's collaborative.
Thanks a lot, Gustavo, because you raised a number of points there. It's not just about offering single solutions, but it's trying to hit multiple goals. And that from Brazil to towards Africa, Michel Kagiri, Senior Director of Government Relations and Policy at the One Acre Fund. Michel, can you give us a sense? You were listening to some of the solutions from Brazil, also the opening remarks from Elizabeth. Give us a sense of what are those biggest barriers for smallholder farmers for adoption in Africa?
Thank you very much, James, and hi, everyone. So like in Africa, drawing from our experience at One Acre Fund, where One Acre Fund, we serve smallholder farmers, and we are currently in 10 markets in sub-Saharan Africa, and this year we've served over 5.5 million farmers. What we are finding is that where there's like as Gustavo said, where you'll have the science is there, but translating it in practice and then driving adoption, you begin to run up against systemic barriers. So quite a number of smallholder farmers we find are very price sensitive. And so, for example, in Malawi, where we've been running trials to improve soil health, what we found was that the cost of a biosolution was a big barrier to adoption. And so being able to make the organic solutions affordable is one of the key things. And then the second key barrier that we found and that we keep finding is that the markets are underdeveloped. And so, for example, even in Kenya, where you've got quite a number of people coming in, the availability of organic solutions still remains quite nascent. In Malawi, for example, we found that we had to partner with people to create the solution. So like building the system as we went. So having to then be like, what would be an affordable solution for farmers? We settled on like chicken manure. We had to get partners. And then the other barrier we came through, which is a barrier we're finding in multiple markets, is the weak R&D and certification systems. So in Malawi, we again had to come up with those protocols on the go, engage with the government, engage with other partners to actually start building the system as part of the trial. In Kenya, for example, recently we were engaging with a potential partner of organic fertilizer, and we went and visited their facility unannounced. And what we found when we went unannounced was that the quality in terms of what was actually on the factory was not meeting what they were bringing for us to sample, because there was like about 50% glass, plastic, no third parties testing. So you find that the systemic gaps really then have an impact on the credibility of the solution and then become a barrier to adoption. And then lack of finance is another very, very big barrier. So I've already talked about the price sensitivity, but here I'm talking about like creating the system and the investments that will allow the market to develop to a point where it's affordable, it's accessible, the quality is consistent, there are strong regulations. That requires financing. But what we find is that there isn't any agriculture investment fund that's really looking at that, you know. And for a lot of these innovations, you'll have the science, but then ensuring that that science can then translate in the field, it's adopted, and it can translate at scale, requires an additional kind of capital and to fund that bridge. And then you need the patient capital for the market to then catch up, because there will be a lag. So what are the kinds of subsidies that are there? There are no subsidies at all right now in any of our markets, actually in any of anywhere in Africa, that is going to that is designed to support and incentivize adoption by farmers. And then finally, there's a very big constraint that's not that obvious, but comes when you really start working in close proximity with farmers, and these are the behavioral and labor constraints. So organic solutions tended to come with increased labor needs, especially for women. And so you have to solve for what will make it convenient, or how do you then adapt to these requirements that are barriers to adoption. Another thing is perception. So for example, with the soil health pilot that we were running in Malawi, what we found was that a barrier to dealing with organics was perceptions around it. And so we had to shift like the language to make it to try and shift the perceptions to become about that you need to invest in your soil, you need to improve soil health for your own future. And that takes time. So again, planning for how you'll do that behavior change becomes important. So the changes that need to happen obviously is like we do need clearer policy guidelines, and these include like trade rules, certification, temporary or tariff exemptions for verified bio inputs. We do really need to increase investment in national R&D and enable support for regional technology transfer as well. We need smart time-bound subsidies and blended finance to de-risk early adoption, and then having that high-touch extension systems that will really drive behavior change and adoption and close proximity for smallholder farmers.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. You've touched on a huge number of points there. Basically, in the policy environment, the connection with research, finance, behavioral change. What are the examples, or what are the lessons you're learning from the examples where it is working? You spoke a little bit about Malawi. I think maybe give me a sense of, you know, where it is working. What are the lessons you're learning? What are you learning for? How can you see your story maybe moving closer towards what we're hearing from Brazil in terms of the leadership?
Thank you very much for that. So in terms of what we're learning is definitely proximity is key. So designing with the farmer at the center, having the science solution, but then testing it on the ground, building in runway for the behavior change and adoption, partnerships, and being able to work in collaboration across multiple sectors becomes critical. So finding ways to bring in the science, plus the business, plus the policy, plus the financing becomes critical. And where this happens, then everyone is able to then bring their particular genius to then create something that works in the field and that is scalable. And then definitely patient capital is critical, because these investments don't happen unless there is a financier that is ready to finance the bridge, and is patient enough to wait for the results, because it does take time for the market to catch up. And it also takes time for the solution to begin to yield the results, including for the farmers.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. That's really interesting. And that brings me over to our last continent, or our last continental change, where I've got to Dr. Ravi Shankar from the International Council of Agricultural Research in India. And Doctor, you've obviously coming from a very, very different situation in Asia. Could you give me a sense first of what are the gaps that limit farmers? What are the approaches that ensure that the biosolutions benefit while maintaining productivity from your experience in India?
Thank you, James. Hope I'm audible.
Perfectly.
Okay, so good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone. And if you talk about the small and marginal households or the farmers in Asia as well as in the African countries, the major issue is the farms are subjected to the climate as well as the market related risks. So one biosolution will not fit for every small and marginal households when you talk particularly about the profitability and the productivity. So the different approaches we need to employ for these smallholder farms, and the approaches which we find well in India as well as in some of the South Asian countries, that they are perfectly tested or defined. Or one is the integrated farming systems, and another is the organic farming solutions, and also the natural farming. In the recent time, the government of India is also focusing on the large area under the natural farming. And also the fourth one is the integrated crop management, or we can say it as towards organic solutions. So these are all the four different approaches which are being employed currently in the biosolutions to make the smallholder farms more resilient in terms of the climate as well as the market. When you talk about the integrated farming systems, it is our traditional system, and it is being revived through a scientific solutions, location specific, resource specific integration of the different components based on the resource availability of the farmers, and also the skill and also the capacity of the smallholders in different parts of the country. And if you see, the scientifically tested solutions are available for the integrated farming system for the different regions in India. And these models are also being scaled at the larger level by in the different states of the India also. And more than 1 lakh households and also more than 15 lakh hectare are under this integrated farming systems promoted through the government schemes, supported by the incentivization of the farmers. So these integrated farming systems offsets the improves the carbon sequestration, which is very essential part of this, as well as the it also provides the multiple opportunities for the farmers to earn income. They get the round the year income also they from the integrated farming systems, from the different different components of the farming system. That also reduces the risk of market also, this integrated farming system. The another approach which is employed is the organic farming, or the organic farming, wherein the bio inputs are promoted, either on-farm produced inputs or the off-farm inputs are produced, promoted in the organic farming. And currently, India is having the largest number of the organic producers at the global level. 55% of the global organic producers are in India, and they are all small and marginal households. Although also the coming to the productivity and profitability, there are scientific package of practices which is to be followed, which is being promoted in different schemes, and through which the farmers can overcome the transition period loss as well as the improving the productivity after the transition period and getting the profitability also. And if you see, about 5 million hectare area is under organic farming in India. It itself says that how these organic related solutions are getting popular among the small and marginal households, because India is having about 86% of the farmers under the small household, small farmers. 86% of the farmers are small households. And the third one is the natural farming. In the recent times, it is being promoted, and this is actually depend on only the on-farm bio-input based farming systems, wherein the localized microbial consortia are prepared at the farmer itself by using the local ingredients, and that is mainly working in the different regions where the pulses based, legume based systems are popular, and also the low input intensive systems are there, and these are helping, these natural farming solutions are helping to improve the productivity in those regions where the productivity is lower already. So these are all the another situation. And the fourth approach which I told is the towards organic approach, that is reducing the synthetics in the farming over a period of time, gradual way of reducing the synthetics, so that the farmers do not lose the yield or do not lose the income. So these are all some of the approaches which is available for the biosolutions to be promoted across different countries. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Ravi. Conscious of time, I just want to touch you on maybe one really strong example of a successful bio-input cooperative. You heard from Brazil about the cooperative approach. One strong example of a bio-input cooperative in India. The numbers you're talking about are really, really big.
Yeah. And with respect to the cooperative successful model of bio-inputs, if I talk, we have the promotion of this farmer producer organization, self-help groups, as well as the some of the certification system led by the participatory guarantee system at the local level. And particularly for the natural farming, I would like to highlight one of the successful model which is there in Gujarat, Navsari district, wherein this Jeevamrit is produced. Jeevamrit, which is the one of the bio input used in the natural farming, and there are people supported by the panchayat and also the group of people. They produce these Jeevamrit, and then it is being supplied to the farmers. They can get the Jeevamrit at the production center itself, or it is being also given to the farmers at their doorstep also with a very minimal prices. So these solutions, Jeevamrit solutions, also helps for the improving the soil health also over a period of time. And this is found to be a very successful business model, wherein the Jeevamrit is produced and then supplied at the door as well as to the farmers. The another important point, one model I just want to highlight, is the waste to wealth program. If you see, the banana area is also more, and banana pseudo stems are going waste, and farmers, they also face the difficulty in removing those stems, banana pseudo stems from the field itself. But these banana pseudo stems are collected by organizations, FPOs, and also the universities, institutions, in a model in such a way that these pseudostems are used, these extract from the pseudostems are used for making the bioorganic liquid manures, as well as making up the fiber for the fiber materials from the banana pseudostems for making different peppers, etc. So this is also another waste to wealth model which is being which is available for scaling in other regions.
Thank you very much, Doctor. And my last panelist, Dr. Elliot Dosoyovo, the agriculture and climate change specialist with Africa Rice. You don't always think, when you think about rice, you don't always think about bio inputs, Elliot. what are the gaps that are limiting farmers from adopting the biosolutions in West Africa that you're seeing? And maybe then we could touch on some of the scientific innovations.
Thanks a lot, James, and good afternoon, everyone from West Africa. I will speak from our experience with the ICRA project, focusing on the Mali case. ICRA is a World Bank project that aims to accelerate the adoption of climate-smart agriculture and climate information services by farmers. And in Mali, one of the most promising biosolutions that we are promoting is the integrated rice and fish system. This is a natural system actually that enhances soil organic carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium from fish residues and reduce insects and mosquito larvae. Farmers adopting integrated rice fish systems do not use any chemical fertilizer. They don't use any pesticides, but they have double rice yield compared to the other farmers, and they have 4-time incomes compared to other farmers. But despite these clear benefits, 3 major gaps still actually limit the widespread adoption of integrated rice fish system in Mali. First, there is a knowledge and capacity gap. Most farmers are still unfamiliar with integrated rice fish as a viable solution to reduce the use, or probably actually to avoid the use of mineral fertilizer. Traditional extension system rarely integrated fishery and crop management, so farmers need technical support to design and maintain integrated systems that balance fish, water, and rice needs. So what we did in ICRA project was to provide hands-on training to farmers, and we realized that with this hands-on training, adoption of integrated rice fish by the local farmers actually steadily increased. Second, there is a need actually for finance. Integrated rice and fish system requires small but critical investment in bond, in figure lines, and small water control practices. For women and youths who actually are the major rice producers in Mali, access to credit and insurance is actually out of reach. So the ICRA project tried to bridge this gap by promoting a local financing mechanism that is called Saving for Change. And these Saving for Change groups help women to have access to finance and be able to invest in integrated rice fish system. Third, there is a policy and institutional gap. Many agricultural policies in Mali and in West Africa are still input-driven and focused on fertilizer subsidies, rather than actually promoting ecosystem-based approaches. So to unlock rice fish solution, ICRA is supporting the Malian government to develop policies that reward environmental services like soil restoration, nutrient recycling, and carbon sequestration that integrated rice fish system provides. So definitely science is ready, but the next frontier is to connect farmers to capacity building, finance, and enabling policies. And this is what we are doing with the ICRA project in Mali as an example. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Elliot. Elliot, you know as well as I do, the ICRA project was very focused on not necessarily research on new innovations, but looking at the innovations that were there, trying to bundle those innovations and working with farmers to be able to maybe give us a bit of a sense of one success story about how that's been moving forward and how we've been connecting science and using what we've done before to bundle it and to make it for it to work.
Many thanks just for this very interesting question. I mean, from the rice fish experience in Mali, a key actually to link science and local knowledge has been co-creation and not transfer. I mean, the sources of the rice fish system came from blending scientific evidence on nutrient cycling, carbon sequestration with local ecological and cultural knowledge. So, for example, the farmers in irrigation scheme, they know that during the rainy season, fish appear naturally in the rice fields. But what we did in the ICRA project, which was the collaboration between Africa Rice and World Fish, we worked with the national partners and with partners, with farmers to enhance their traditional knowledge by improving the design of rice fish feeds, by optimizing the water depth, and also by identifying the appropriate species of fish. So this co-design approach turned an informal local practices into a scientifically validated biosolution that improve soil fertility, income, and reduce mosquito larvae. Another lesson is that participatory experimentation also play a key role in the context of Mali. Farmers field school allow community to test and compare integrated rice fish with the traditional practices. And this enabled women who were initially excluded from technical training to become leaders in fish feeding and management once the session actually were designed to meet their needs. So this is how the integrated rice fish actually became truly locally owned in the context of Mali. A third lesson is to leverage digital innovation to bridge the gap between science and farmers. The ACRA project very much used simple tools like radios and WhatsApp groups to enable farmers to exchange experience and build trust in the adoption of integrated rice fish systems. So, I mean, the key in our case has been to co-design, to valorize the local knowledge, and also to consider the local context in designing and promoting the integrated rice fish system.
Thanks a lot, Elliot. You know, and before I go on to the second round, I'd like to bring Elizabeth back in again. Elizabeth, you've been, as a representative of farmers in Eastern Africa, you've been listening to a lot of the solutions, the challenges. Maybe what's chiming you? What are you hearing that really reflects your life? And particularly, what are you hearing that the solutions that you find that could be interesting?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And let me pick it up from the last speaker, Elliot, especially when he mentioned about the partnership with ICRA. Maybe for purposes of the audience, ICRA is the accelerating impact of CGR in Africa, in research in Africa. And together with ICRA, we've also identified adaptation cases in Africa. And these adaptation cases, some of them are those that can be, scaled. And majority of them are also using biosolutions. So we believe that you need to know where some of these, because we normally talk about scaling, but what are we scaling, and where are some of these successful cases that we need to put to scale? So we've been able to identify about 52 cases across Africa. We profiled 8 of them, and they were actually presented at the SB62 by Africa Group of Negotiators, and a number of them are using biosolutions. And then listening also from the other speakers in terms of actually the challenges that the farmers face when it comes to scaling. I think one important aspect that we need to know is that most of the partners want to work with farmers, or they usually talk about putting farmers at the center, but they don't usually listen to the farmers. I think for us and my constituency that I represent is that partners need to make it intentional to really listen to the farmers, co-create with the farmers. That's when we can, be able to build trust among, the ecosystem partnerships. It's really important that farmers are not just at the center, but they are co-creators in most of these, biosolutions. And then I think one point that also came out from Michelle, not Michelle, I think it was Gustav. It was around, the real results in the field. And when you look at most of these biosolutions, they don't really give instant results. The transition period takes some time, maybe between 3 to 5 years, or maybe more than 5 years. But then who takes care of this transition period? I mean, there's that cost of transition that the farmer has to inject. And so when you look at that investment versus the return on the investment, the two don't really match. So we really need to see how can we have maybe some of the partners that can really subsidize that cost of transition or support the farmers in terms of, that cost. And then the other aspect is on the markets and the inequalities in the markets, because the markets are not really giving true value of food that is produced with biosolutions. For example, if I'm farmer A, Elizabeth is using biosolutions, and maybe James, you're farmer B, and you're using conventional, for example, fertilizer. When we go to the market, we are going to the same market that has no appreciation in terms of giving value to good, food that has been produced through biosolutions and that produced by conventional fertilizer. And we all know that, of course, in terms of output, like I had earlier mentioned, it takes time for the farmer to realize maximum output with biosolutions. So it's really important that maybe we create that sort of value proposition for goods that are produced by various biosolutions, especially at the market bid. And finally, the affordability aspect. I think Michelle mentioned that in most cases, these biosolutions actually, when you go out there in the market, they're usually a bit expensive than the conventional fertilizers, because they're the conventional ones. There are so many on the market. So the issue of affordability, the issue of accessibility is also very key, and we need to take consideration of all those aspects. Thank you, James. Back to you.
Thanks a lot, Elizabeth. There's a lot of really interesting points to unpack there. I'm going to go back to Guilherme one more time. Guilherme, you're launching the Soil Health Brazil Platform Initiative at COP30. How does that soil health initiative respond to some of the challenges, I would say, maybe from Elizabeth, in terms of responding, putting farmers at the center, really sort of building in and helping that? Maybe if you could speak to that, Guilherme.
Sure. Actually, we are launching on the COP30 the Soil Health Brazil platform. This is a platform that has built on the data that we have gained from the soil biotechnology. So today we have about 60,000 samples, soil samples analyzed through soil bio all around the country from different production areas. So this framework, that platform, that will allow users to visualize soil health patterns through interactive maps and statistics summaries that show where soils are in good condition, where they are degrading, where they are in recovering state. So it will also include the soil carbon trend index that I mentioned before, which will indicate whether soils are in a given region are tending to gain, remain stable, or lose carbon over time. It's also important to say that these maps produced at the municipal level, not at the farm or field scale. So it's not a tool designed for individual farmers to evaluate their own plots. We have another tool for that, but that platform in specific is not for that. But rather a way to provide aggregated soil health and carbon statistics at municipal, state, or regional levels. What we think it's very valuable for identifying geographic patterns, setting priorities, and supporting decision-making at broader scales. So from a policy perspective, the platform has the potential to help governments to design low-carbon agricultural programs, identify areas for restoration, or put incentives and investments where they can have the greatest impact. It's also important from the scientific perspective, helping researchers and institutions track national progress in soil health and carbon sequestration over time.
Thanks a lot. And you really answered one of the questions. I think maybe indirectly, it's building up those public goods that allow governments to set the policies to help the transition. So maybe go back to Gustavo. Gustavo, what are the lessons that Brazilian cooperatives can bring about private-public partnerships and about the type of support that cooperatives need to be able to accelerate this transition?
Well, James, Brazil's cooperative network show us that trust, technical training, and strong governance are essential. The real success comes from real collaboration between cooperatives and farmers. Focus on what actually works on the ground. Take Copavel, for instance, the first cooperative in Brazil to own the biofactory. It's proof that with the vision, innovation, and cooperation, we can turn today challenges into real scalable solutions. Model like this and should inspire public-private partnerships in other countries, adapted to local realities. When farmers success, nature wins, and vice versa. In short, scaling sustainable practice requires collective organization, economic incentives, and trust in the process. And that's exactly what the cooperatives are delivering here in Brazil.
Thanks a lot, Gustavo. Let me sort of go over to Michelle. Michelle, what's the one concrete? This is the road to COP. We're talking about science and policy, and we're trying to feel like engender action. But what's the one concrete COP30 action that can help farmers act in their greater access to biosolutions?
Thank you so much. For me, it would be financing adoption. Because smallholders, they're producing nearly a third of the world's food, but when you look at the figures, they're receiving less than 0.3% of global climate finance. And that imbalance is the biggest barrier to scaling the regenerative and biological solutions. So the key thing here is that if we want adoption, then we must finance the transition and not just the innovation. And so what this would mean in practice would be to find ways to redirect existing climate and adoption finance toward smallholder adoption, and then making farmers visible in national climate investment plans, financing to de-risk the early years. So this could be through results-based and blended finance mechanisms that would help farmers cross the transition valley when the costs are high and the returns haven't yet been seen. There's also finance needed to create the enabling systems around adoption. So the research, the R&D, certification, extension, support the market to grow. And this will make the innovations viable and then able to scale. And then backing for the patient capital that's needed, for the long-term market building, because the market that will not be able to sustain this longer term, like that lag, and recognizing that lag is there and being able to fund that bridge.
Thanks a lot, Michelle. That's really interesting. And I think we're hearing this coming up a lot. We're hearing the financing question, the transition question, connecting the science and the policy questions. So a lot of things coming from different parts of the world. I want to go back to Elliot. Elliot, what does it take to move from pilots to system-wide change? In the research that you're doing, and maybe if there's anything in the extension that you could maybe add to that as well.
Thank you very much, James. Again, drawing on the experience in Mali with the ICRA project, and in this case also given based on the integrated rice fish system, just as example, what we have learned, particularly from the 4 to 5 years experiences with the ICRA project, is that moving from pilot to system-wide transformation require 3 pillars: integration into national policy, institutional scaling mechanism, and sustainable finance. I think the other panelists also mentioned this, and I fully actually align with them. First, integration into national policy. In the ICRA project, particularly what we did was to work closely with the Ministry of Agriculture, but also with the National Agricultural Research System to integrate those innovation, rice fish, into extension packages. So embedding these practices in official programs ensure continuity beyond the project cycle and foster national commitments. Secondly, institutional scaling through partnership. Michelle, Elizabeth, Gustavo actually all mentioned this, and I would like also to reiterate that in the case of ICRA project, Africa Rice has worked with WorldFish, and we all work with the local NGO, the Farmers Cooperative, and the private hatcheries to make to develop a network that make possible for farmers to adopt the integrated rice fish system. And now we have more than 10,000 farmers actually benefiting from that system through that network. Third, sustainable finance, and I think Michelle also just mentioned that, and I would like also to echo that one. Integrated rice fish system, for instance, like other biosolutions, they generate, in addition to economic return, environmental returns. And farmers need definitely upfront support to make that shift, that transition. So scaling requires aligned climate finance with local microfinance and national investment program. And what we are doing in ICRA project is really actually to support the Malian government to develop project program for ecosystem services or carbon credit scheme to be able actually to reward the farmers who decide to make the transition from the traditional rice production system to integrated rice fish system, because they are actually contributing to soil carbon sequestration and actually environmental preservation. So these are a few examples that I would like actually to share from the experience of the ICRA project in Mali. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Elliot. And lastly, on the panelists, but then I want to go back to Marcella for if she has a question. Ravi, what parts of the India research and policy framework could really support the South-South collaboration? Because that's what we're talking about, I think, in this conversation. We're talking about a lot of South-South collaboration. What are the parts of the work that you're doing at ICAR and various partners can really support that framework and maybe accelerate progress on soil health?
Okay. So thank you, James. Basically, our research focus on the integrated farming systems, organic farming, as well as the natural farming, and in-depth science into these bio inputs, including the microbiome studies, both in the inputs as well as the soils after application of these inputs, will certainly help for the South-South collaboration, more South-South collaboration in the research field. And particularly with respect to the policy, the incentivization of the farmers who are adopting these biosolutions, maybe a crop diversification, or it may be a organic farming, or the farming systems, natural farming. All these contributes for the reduction in the synthetic manufacture of the fertilizers or the pesticides. And the incentivization during the initial period is very, very critical for the farmers to scale up these biosolutions and adopt it. And particularly, we have a large amount of data sets as well as the research network on these biosolutions, developing a localized solutions for the different resources the smallholders are having. So this can be collaborated for further analysis and also the further replication in the other under the South-South collaboration. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Ravi. And I'm going to go to our Deputy Director General for Research, Marcella. Marcella, do you have any questions or maybe any comments that you'd like to ask of our panelists, of any of the presenters?
Yeah, thank you, James. And as we said at the beginning, and it was also emphasized by Elizabeth, and also through the experience in Brazil and also the experience of India, is that, I mean, it's possible. I mean, this transformation is already happening, the use of bio inputs. And then probably my question is to Elizabeth. We have been talking about in the CIR about the importance of doing co-creation when we develop these innovations. And then Elizabeth was also mentioning that there are farmers already doing this, applying biosolutions. So from your perspective, Elizabeth, what is the role of science, especially in those contexts where already these innovations are being applied? What do you think Africa can be favored out of science. I mean, how science can help farmers if they're already in this transition. So what could be in this moment the main gap that we can help to fill, especially in a process of transition that has already started. So over to you, Elizabeth.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And I want to say that where, in most cases, where actually already agriculture, for example, and the use of biosolutions, and I want to borrow experience from my farm. It's because, I mean, by default, we've been doing it. It's not that it's a new initiative that is being brought from somewhere, but because this is something that has happened for generations. I mean, my parents have been all these, sort of, solutions for use of and so forth. But I think what has been lacking is that now we need to put this scale. And as we put it to scale, as a farmer, it in a business sense, for example, in terms of the impact that these solutions are going to create on the farm, on my farm. And then as I look at the impact, then it requires the science bit, because these solutions, doing them locally with indigenous knowledge, but then how do we bring innovations? How do we bring research and the science into this indigenous knowledge to make sure that we co-create solutions that are going to create impact at scale? What has been lacking. And also when you look at the research side, a lot has been happening, the research centers, for example. But part of this, or whatever has been innovated, a lot of it is on the silos. Or if it is implemented, it is at pilot phase. So how do we make sure we invest in, moving beyond just to scaling? I think we need to see investments being into a scaling bit, because there's so many innovations, but it's around so many pilots happening. So can we put investments beyond just the pilot, so that then for those solutions that are working, the innovations that are working, we can be able to put them to scale. That's mentioned about the adaptation cases, for example, that we profiled with ICRA support, is that these are cases where we feel they can create impact at scale. So why don't we invest in most of these cases and be able to create impact we need and the scale that we're really looking for? And by doing that, then we are building the trust that is usually lacking between the farmers and all the other ecosystem actors. I don't know whether I've addressed your question, but I think from my perspective, it's really what is needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you very much. And I think we can continue this dialogue, because for us it's super important on how we can really connect in a co-creation process. And scalable. And I think we need to advance, and every context is different. So I think there are different barriers and bottlenecks everywhere. So I think probably we also as a scientist understand what are those specific barriers that are very context relevant to be able to connect well to those co-design processes. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thanks a lot, Marcela. And I want to go a quick 1 minute, 1.5 minutes to Gustavo. Gustavo, you're representing maybe larger farmers. And what are you hearing from Elizabeth? And maybe what can you say that's working in terms of what can science add? And maybe how can the larger farmers then support the transition also for smallholders?
Well, here in Brazil, in specific here in the south, that the cooperatives work with the small farmer. That it's the maximum. It's like 15 acres. So we think about that this technology and the bioinputs, it's not for the biggest farmer. We need to put to all the farmers to explain, to reduce costs. We know that we have the big farmer that we can buy a little bit cheaper than a small farmer. And we're trying to make this technology and the bioinputs to show that this is for everyone. This is a new solution, not for just agriculture, but it's for the world, because we are thinking about the climate, about this health soil, and everything together. It's successful for us from Biofactory.
Thanks a lot, Gustavo. I'm looking at my clock and we've got a few minutes left, so I think it maybe falls to me to try and maybe put some final remarks on this. It's been an interesting conversation full of diversity, with different farming systems, different geographical contexts, different stakeholders representing different groups. But one of the things I think that's coming out at the center of this conversation is the idea of co-creation. Farmers at the center. Gustavo said it, Elizabeth said it, all of the practitioners said it. They also said that the transition is ongoing. It didn't start yesterday. There's a lot of really good success. We've heard about a lot of the success and about the value that's been reached in Brazil, and the numbers of farmers that have been reached, and how the Brazilian government is now trying to institutionalize this with their COP initiative, RAIS, which is land restoration, climate finance for land restoration and food security. And we found that science is already driving the impact, but we need to do a lot more. We need to, as Elizabeth challenged us, to move from the pilots towards the scale. We're seeing a little bit of that in Brazil. We've got some buds of it around the world. Our Indian colleagues spoke to us about many different examples from the organic farming and how India represents such a large amount of the organic farming. And then we looked at this big question around how do we get the investment into the sector? What's the enabling environment that we can, and the mix of innovations that can help us move forward? But I think the big question that came out after we're talking about farmers being at the center is, how do we manage the transition process? How do we manage, as Elizabeth said, is it 1 or 2 or 3 years where maybe there's a transition process? And to be able to make sure that our incentives are helping us manage the transition process, but also recognizing that we're not talking just about businesses, we're not talking just about food production, food security, and nutrition, but we're also talking about the environmental benefits, the environmental benefits, and how can we manage to build those into the business models. So a lot of the questions, even in the farmer, that are leading us towards our next conversation in Belém. We're going to be talking about policies. We're going to be talking about finance. We're going to be in Belém with all of the speakers, but we're also going to be live streaming for people who want to join us online. It will be in Portuguese and it will be in English again, as these two. So I'd like to thank all of our speakers, to thank the Ministry of Livestock and Agriculture, to thank Embrapa, to thank all my CGIO colleagues, to thank all of the speakers, farmers representatives, and I look forward to meeting everybody again together in person in Belém, and to have the documentation of if you like, the high-level guidance that we hope that will come out of this, and the deeper partnership that we'll have in the future. So I'd like to say thank you to everybody and to wish you all a nice evening, a nice day, or a good night.